Welcome back to Voices of Conversion. I am your host, Addie Ray. Today's guest, Marina Roessler, is a personal friend of mine and the host behind the account Catholic Working Mama. Her content inspires Catholic moms who are working outside the home and to uplift them in their journey in faith and bring them closer ultimately to Jesus Christ. Today's episode is a conversation about Marina's reversion to the Catholic faith. It's one I'm looking forward to having, and I'm sure you all will enjoy it greatly. Before we get started today, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube. If you are listening on Spotify, or even if you're not, head over there and follow the podcast, Voices of Conversion. Make sure to rate us 5 stars and like this video wherever you're seeing it. And make sure to share us with a friend. These are ways that the algorithm brings this content to other souls that need to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and these stories of conversion that will encourage them greatly. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome, Marina, to the podcast.
Hi, Addie. Hi, everyone.
All right. So, your content that you've recently started is called Catholic Working Mama. Tell us about that.
So, I have a 9.5-month-old daughter. I went back to work when she was about 3 months old at working mom, working in corporate America in corporate finance for a real estate company. And something that has been on my heart pretty much on a daily basis since returning to work was trying to kind of connect other Catholic working moms to one another, because I feel like it is a group of women that is very vast and large, but is kind of fragmented and disconnected. And so it was something that was on my heart pretty much every day. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And decided to start a Substack because it's a platform that's gaining a lot of popularity and just kind of, I don't know, it has the ability to evangelize others and just reading little brief articles and stuff like that. So I decided, I've always enjoyed writing, so I decided to start writing about specific topics and how to tie motherhood, Catholicism, and work all into one. And I'm hoping that it has the ability to evangelize others, touch souls, and basically make Catholic working moms feel less alone. Because I do think it's a consistent problem, whether it's culturally within, Catholic groups or not. Just in general, I think people often feel shame for going back to work when it's not necessary to feel shame, and God doesn't call us, not to work. So
there is a huge sentiment in the Catholic community of there is a one size fits all cookie cutter mold that as a woman you have to fit into, and that's not a sacrament. Like, being a stay-at-home mom is not a sacrament. Obviously it would be sinful to neglect our families, obviously,
right.
for men or for women. We're primarily mothers and fathers, but there is this like disordered almost burden on women. And so basically this idea that men work outside the home, women stay at home, men are isolated for 8 hours a day, women are isolated for 8 hours a day. They're responsible for all of the cooking and cleaning and child rearing, and the men just bring home the bacon. And that's not a Catholic view at all. And so, this idea of the stay-at-home mom, like the 1950s housewife, is not a traditional view at all. And women have been working since ever, like working the fields with their families, working in the trades with their husbands, and now today we have this ability in the modern times to give our gifts that God has given us, that the Lord has given us for the betterment of society, and still also love and provide for our kids and have that. You can have both. It's possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've done pretty extensive research on the topic too, because I'm like, why is, like, I don't know, like you said, it feels so one size fits all. And so I'm like, why is this? Is it biblical? Is it in the catechism? And it's not biblical or in the catechism. We are called to live an ordered life. And I want to, make sure that's well known, that it should be God, spouse, children, work. And that's especially important, even as a working mom, to follow that order. But it's not biblical to only call mothers to be at home, or only call dads to be working in an office 8 hours a day. So I'm trying to evangelize in that sense.
And that's so important because I see a lot in the traditional communities where it is that 1950s kind of trope is kind of pushed on people. But like my
Yeah.
husband, he works probably 80 hours a week most weeks. And you know what he still comes home to do? He still comes home to do bath time with our oldest. He still takes the kids on walks. He still makes dinner half the nights of the week. And it's not because I'm this feminist barking down his throat, like, you got to do half of what I do. It's just that we both contribute because 'cause we're both competent adults, like, he took care of himself for 30 years before we got married. He can make
Mhm.
meals, like, and I love to serve him, so I make a lot of our meals, he loves to serve me, it's like we're out trying to outlove each other, trying to outserve each other,
Yeah.
and that also applies to rearing children, like, he would never if our child had a blowout sorry, for the people who don't have kids, if you don't know what that is, it's maybe, good for you. But if our child had a huge mess and a blowout, and he would never just hand me the baby and be like, "Here you go." Like, he would never do that, like, it's just this
Yeah.
and I know there unfortunately, some women do have that burden of being in marriages where their husbands say, "I'd never change a diaper." But, like,
Right.
you're parents. You're both parents, and yeah, it's just one of those things that, and it's not a feminist thing. It's not a modernist agenda. This is just if we're really going back to how life should be, then the proper order of things. Husbands and wives need to prioritize their families. It's not this, like you said, all husbands need to do this particular thing. All wives need to do this particular thing. We both need to contribute to the well-being of our families.
And I think it like I don't know because we both work, outside of the home. Our daughter goes to daycare, and we come home and do our whole, nighttime routine and stuff. Like I think the because we both are busy, and have work outside the home and stuff like that, it makes our partnership and our marriage that much stronger. Like the fact that we work so eloquently as a team because of our situation, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah, and it really does increase that communication whenever you're in those I mean, you have to be. You have to do it. I work in the home with the podcast,
Yeah.
on top of having the babies, but, with my husband's work schedule, because he is on call a lot, and, he has to be ready to go to do his job, and it does make you communicate better when you live in a environment where you have to give your all to your family and you have to give your all to the community with the line of work that you might be in, whether it be healthcare or law enforcement or military or customer service, whatever it may be. If you have a high demand job, you
Mhm.
have to work with your spouse and can't neglect your kids either. So you are a team. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So your content on Instagram has really inspired me, and I know it's inspired a lot of women, and the community has grown. And you are Catholic now.
Mhm.
Have you always been practicing your faith?
I was technically baptized Catholic when I was like little baby. Then I was raised Protestant up until, I mean, we were relatively involved in the church, went every Sunday, did, Bible school camp and stuff like that, Friday nights and at church and stuff like that. And then in high schools started the diversion, sadly, away. Basically, there was a substance abuse problem, as well as my parents were separating. They're now divorced, and so I think that there was a lot of anger and resentment filled in my little like teen angst heart of like, why would you do this to me, and so that's kind of where the um I unfortunately fell away from God a little bit, was starting in high school, angsty teen, kind of always had it in the back of, my head that I still believed in God. And it's funny enough, even though I was raised Protestant, I'd always make the sign of the cross when I prayed. So, and I couldn't tell you why I did that. And I honestly couldn't tell you where I learned that. I just always did it. So I think it's kind of funny that I'm Catholic now. Um, and so high school, trying time, if you will, then I went off to college, and like my main motivation in college was basically changing the trajectory of my bloodline. You know, I'm the first person in my entire family to be working in a corporate workplace. Not that it's better than any other workplace. There's beautiful workplaces out there. People work for themselves, etc. But just that was my personal goal, just for security purposes. You know, like having proper healthcare, retirement, and stuff like that. And it's kind of hard to believe an 18-year-old cared about that type of stuff, but I did. And so went to college, studied hospitality in college, because I like to think that like servitude is one of my gifts. I really like helping others, communicating with others, and so studied that in college. And my main goal was to graduate, work a corporate job, and provide for my family, send my kids to, you know, good schools and stuff like that. And so throughout college, I was in a sorority, had a ton of fun. But leading up to kind of what led to my conversion, I went through a really challenging, super challenging time, both with my faith, my personal life, and pretty much everything. I was really, really depressed. Was not really focusing on school that much. I recently, like, I broke up with a boyfriend of 2.5 years and just kind of was extremely, extremely lost. And so that was kind of like a time in my life where I was like thinking about God again, where I kind of put God on the back burner, in the back seat. Sadly, but it was a time where I'm like, well, what's the only thing that could possibly get me out of this? Like, I've tried everything else, right? I've tried working out, meditation, this, that, and the other thing. If nothing else is working, you know, what is something, what is, you know, people preach and people change the trajectory of their life because of God. Now, if it works for everybody else, it must work for me. And I still had like this little bitty, you know, relationship with him that was relatively untapped. So I thought, you know, why not? And so I started to kind of listen to more religious podcasts, more music. And through a trying time, it was very emotional, right? And so it was super emotional, and I felt like I was just inching my way back into that relationship with him and making it stronger. And now it looked really weird too. Like, at that time in my life, I was interning, and I did sales in that internship. So I literally drove around for like 8 hours a day. So like, you're either going to be listening to Taylor Swift's new album, which I do love, for 8 hours a day. You're going to find things that, you know, are better for you. Not to say that music is not good for you, but just kind of like tap into that deeper part of yourself and make you learn more about yourself and like what you want to believe. And I think also was a great time in my life for that to happen, because those are like the initial, and like my theory, those are the initial like identity forming years. So like things that happen in your life have great impact on you in that age range, right? Like, think about like 20 to 23, whether you go through something really good, really bad, those are the significant identity forming years. Like, I hope, you know, our values have changed somewhat since we were teenagers, and I'd like to say so. And then so when those initial identity forming years after, you can, you know, go one way or the other. You can choose for something bad to happen to you, or really hard time in your life to happen to you, and you can lean into it and find Jesus because of it. Or you can get angry about it and kind of live this life of anger and sadness and stuff like that. And so funny enough, still in the midst of that hard time in my life and following it, after I got an invite to go to like attend a trip to Israel. And it was really random, exciting, and kind of, it made me really nervous. And yeah, so I got an invite to take a trip to Israel. Did a lot of studying on Israel in itself before, but also like prayed tirelessly about like, make this, like, have this have an impact on my life, you know. And that trip ended up being the reason I, you know, found Jesus again. It took me a little bit of a while after that to eventually convert to Catholicism. But the moment where I met God again was on the Wailing. It's called the Western Wall in Judaism. Christians call it the Wailing Wall, but it's the wall in the center of Jerusalem. And I remember like putting my hand on the wall, and I was like, and again, I was still in the midst of like a really, really challenging time, like still like desperate for Jesus kind of thing. I remember putting my hand on the wall and being like, if you exist, like this is how I know, and this is how I found out. And I got like chills, and then I just started like bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, you can't deny that. Like, and it's so amazing that such a miracle could happen to me, and just getting that close of an experience with God. And then at that time, you either chose like experiencing that type of miracle, you either choose to lean into it, or you can deny it your whole life. So pretty serious, implications either way. And then when I came back from Israel, it was the start of my senior year of college, and my friend Emily was really, really Catholic, and cradle Catholic, raised Catholic her whole life. So throughout the whole summer, even though I was not Catholic, and kind of just really learning via podcast, returning from Israel, I started asking her to go to mass with her and her boyfriend. And so I can confidently say, up until COVID, I never missed a mass. And I could not tell you why I wanted to go to mass versus like a non-denominational church. It's kind of foreshadowing of eventually converting to Catholicism. And so that was kind of the initial interest in Catholicism. Then COVID happened, moved down to Dallas, attended to non-denominational churches, but really wasn't finding what I was looking for. And also found non-denominational churches to leave my brain like scattered and disorganized, and also feeling a lot of shame, because I think that preachers have the ability to infuse their personal opinions into what they're teaching, which is one of my favorite parts about Catholicism, is like it's incredibly organized, and there's literally no room for personal opinion.
Yes.
So it's perfect for me.
Yes.
And so then, eventually decided to convert, and I did RCIA down here in late 21, early 22, and converted in 22, and have been Catholic ever since. And it's been really fun. I like to think of it as a constant journey. And I feel like it's a different journey for converts, because like you're just like, oh man, everyone's known about saints and Mary like their whole life. And I'm just like, what prayer? Let me read the Saint Michael when they put it up on the screen in mass, because I still don't have it memorized. So I feel like it's like a different journey of like, you still feel like you're playing catch up on everyone else that's like kind of learned this already, whether they went to Catholic school or not. So I love to think about it as a constant journey. That starting the Catholic Working Mama has made me study things a lot more, especially saints. I feel like saints are very daunting because there's so many of them.
There's so many, and there's so many that we don't know. I'm over here trying to find this as you're talking. Your story reminds me a lot of like, not verbatim of St. Augustine, but St. Augustine has this quote, and I'm trying to find it. And it's probably in one of the books I've read, but I'm going to put it, and I say this now so I know, remind myself in the future, I'm going to put this when I'm editing the video on the screen or in the comments below. I'm going to find the exact quote, but it reminds me of your story a lot, because, the suffering and the trials that you went through, the heartbreak, the breakup, all of that ultimately led you to Jesus. And God didn't will for you to suffer, but he permitted that suffering, and he ultimately used it for his glory and for the salvation of your soul and that of your daughter too, and your husband. And so that is a beautiful thing. And I have a couple of questions I want to get back into, going back a little bit. So you mentioned you were baptized Catholic, and then I kind of want to know about that. What kind of Protestant were you raised as? Did your family fall away from the church?
I was raised Lutheran.
No way!
Yeah,
Marina, me too.
Really? And
Yes.
I honestly, I can't tell you like the specifics of like, I don't know, like this, like what they believe versus what other people believe. Like, I knew that.
With Protestantism, and no offense to my Protestant brothers and sisters, but at least as a Protestant, Being raised Lutheran, my family jumped from like one Lutheran denomination, which is ELCA, to another one, which is LCMS. And my parents had no issues with me visiting the Baptist church with friends or the Church of Christ with
Yes. Yeah.
friends. But they did have an issue with me visiting the Catholic Church because with Protestants, it's like, well, we're all the same. We all hate the Catholics. But then when it's like, we want to go to the Catholic Church, how dare you? So
Yeah.
I did not know you were raised Lutheran. I think the Lord has put the last several guests in the podcast that were former Lutheran. And to the audience, I am not intentionally booking former Lutherans. I think the Holy Spirit is just saying, just hammering this home. The Lord is just like, come on, we're just going to bring all the former Lutherans, even if you don't know that they were, even if it's a friend you didn't know is a former Lutheran. So
Yeah.
that's so funny that your family,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny. I'm very sad that they left the Catholic Church for Protestantism, specifically Lutheranism. But it's funny because I did not know that about you, and I was raised Lutheran as well. So you were raised Lutheran.
Mhm. Raised Lutheran. My mom, my dad is like still dabbled with going to mass. My grandparents are super Catholic, and so I've really bonded with them. Really bonded with my grandparents over Catholicism, and then my mom still goes to a non-denominational church. So, and I don't know if my sister goes to church at all, but yeah.
Wow, yeah. So that falling away from the church from your parents, then raising you not Catholic, and like you said, not knowing kind of the differences between them, you just knew you weren't Catholic growing up. Um,
Mhm.
that's so interesting. I was curious if you had, like a moment, like for me being raised Lutheran, how the Holy Spirit brought me to the fullness of truth in the Catholic faith was through looking at who is Martin Luther? What did he believe? What is the history? Because as someone who was raised Lutheran, we were not taught anything before the year 1517. It's almost like they taught that the resurrection happened in the year 1517.
Mhm.
Like there's a millennia and a half gap between the resurrection of Jesus Christ and when Martin Luther
True.
fell
Yeah.
away from the Catholic Church. And apparently
Yeah.
there's nothing in between it. And we're missing out on like all of the saints and the richness and the liturgy and the history.
The history is like and my husband is such a history nerd. And honestly, like he does an incredible job teaching me all about Catholicism. Because I'm like, hey, when I write my little articles, I'm like, is this like doctrinally sound? Because like I do all my research, but then like, I have three people that end up, and like it's not structured yet because I'm only like a few articles in, but I'm so committed to making sure everything I'm saying aligns with the church. But my husband is such a history nerd, so like him teaching me more about the history of Catholicism has been really, really fun.
Yes, and that's a really sad thing too that our brothers and sisters in the Protestant faith are really missing out on is the they're not missing out on it unless they are rejecting it. So they're welcome, like come back to the fold, come back to the fullness of truth. But as it
Mhm.
stands right now, people that are rejecting the Catholic Church are missing out on that abundant history. I mean, you have
Mhm.
so many saints. Saint Teresa of Avila is one. There are thousands, millions of saints that are in heaven with God that their works and their prayers and their lives are not worshiped, but honored in the Catholic faith.
Right.
And it points to the ultimate truth of Jesus Christ. And it does nothing besides strengthen your faith in Jesus. It all points to Jesus. And to
That's a
have that,
Yeah. And that's a constant misconception about Catholics that we're, praying to saints, we're worshiping saints. We're really praying for their intercession, just like you would pray for your friend. You'd ask your friend to pray for you. And
yes,
so that's something where I'm like, and I honestly, as a kid, I think I'd misunderstood. And now being Catholic and, finally diving into saints more, being fearful initially, but starting to study them more and learning more about that aspect of Catholicism, like that's something I want to publicize of like, oh my gosh, like so many people get it wrong, but we need to tell people, this
yes,
is an intercession thing.
yes.
So let me tell you more about it.
Yes, and, like, my dad was raised atheist and my mom was a Baptist. My dad got baptized when he was 21, but before he married my mom, and they were really Baptist in their beliefs, and although we went to a Lutheran church and I was catechized Lutheran, taught all the Lutheran beliefs at home, we had a lot of Baptist tendencies with my parents' core
Mhm.
beliefs. But one thing, oddly enough, and I really do think this was the Holy Spirit working in my parents, whether they wanted to or not, my mom had a book on St. Francis of Assisi, a children's book that we had that she would read to us. And she always said, St. Francis, he was so great. He loved animals. So St. Francis of Assisi, his feast day is October 3rd, but he died in the year 1226. So this is actually prior to the Reformation. He was a saint living among us. And my mother had this book about St. Francis of Assisi that she read to us as kids. And my mom, being an animal lover, she was like, St. Francis loved animals and cared for them deeply. And this book also talked about how he had the stigmata. And my Protestant family, I'm sure, did not know what the stigmata was, but the book had, he had the wounds of Jesus on him. And I am really thankful for that memory because I don't know where my mom got this Catholic children's book because we were raised very anti-Catholic. But St. Francis of Assisi, who started the Franciscan friars, who was an inspiration to St. Padre Pio, who is my favorite saint, who's back here, who also had the stigmata, that seed being planted of veneration of the saints in my Protestant home, even though if you asked my parents today, they would probably laugh or revile someone who said they asked for the saint's intercession. That beautiful truth and that's just one saint, Saint Francis of Assisi, and he was around before the Protestant revolt. But again, just like finding those nuggets of truth, and the Holy Spirit just plants those seeds in us,
Yeah.
like going from Protestant to Catholic. I had that little bit in the back of my mind of, oh, I remember that book. Like as a kid, like I remember reading about that guy, St. Francis, and it is really sad that Protestants are missing out on that fullness
Mhm.
of the truth, and also misunderstanding or misrepresenting, whether it be intentional or unintentional, the Catholic beliefs on prayer and intercessory prayer.
I completely agree.
So you went to Israel, and I know Israel is a hot button topic. Like
Yeah.
people, when you hear Israel, people are angry either for or angry against. I, in discernment and prayer, I've had a lot of quiet time with the Lord, and reading and praying the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It's the devotion for the brown scapular, and really been asking God, like, what should I do? Like, should I speak up? What should I say? I don't know what, because there's so much propaganda from both sides. What do I believe? And this is such a controversial issue. And I really feel like the Lord is telling me now, like, just remain faithful and pray, like pray for everyone, pray for everything that's going on over there, and the truth will reveal itself. And I don't
Mhm.
want to jump on anything without prayer first because it is such a controversial topic. And so when you say Israel, people are like, get so infuriated. But we need to remember that the places that you went to where you had your reversion are places where Jesus walked. And so, this is in no way being like you went to the, republic or the, I don't know, the democracy of the country, Israel proper. And that is why, because the government of Israel is why you converted to Catholicism. This is the places where Jesus walked.
Yeah.
And there is
Yeah.
something holy about the physical places. I've had a lot of Protestants tell me, well, why can't you just pray? I've had this so many times. Why can't you just pray to Jesus in your bedroom? You don't need to go to church. I even heard that from my Lutheran pastor as a child saying, you can just pray to God just the same as you can in church. No, no, no. Jesus Christ came in a physical body on the planet Earth and gives us himself physically through the body, blood, soul, and divinity of himself in the Eucharist. And where he walked is this holy place. Where he walked is something special. So where he had the Last Supper, where he was baptized in the Jordan, where he
It's
was
true.
crucified, where his tomb,
Yeah.
all of these things are holy places because, I mean, when God the Son walks on something on earth, that would change your life. And I'm getting chills just talking about this to you right now. So I just want to clarify that for the audience. I'm in no way taking sides or promoting a government when we talk about your conversion, because this is a place, regardless of what label the country has, and you walked where Jesus walked, and you had this conversion at the Western Wall.
And yeah, no, it was so I have this like saying because I went in 2019. I still talk about it probably weekly going to Israel just because it was such an impactful trip. And I say to everyone, you could be atheist and it still is a place that will change your life. And so I got to go to Bethlehem. I got to see Jesus's tomb, got to read the Beatitudes. Is that what it's called?
Like, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of
Yeah,
heaven.
is
Blessed
it
are the meek.
remind me, is that called the Beatitudes?
I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, Luke 6. Yeah, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. All of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I got to read the Beatitudes at the Mount of Beatitudes, got to, see like just see these really like historically rich like places within Israel. And it's so preserved, which is like another really cool part about it. And another really cool part about the Catholic Church is like it's incredibly well preserved. And I don't know, choose to, non-Catholics listening to this, choose to, question it all you will, but why would something that, isn't the real and true church be so worth preserving
Mhm,
over time?
mhm.
Just something to think about.
Yes. Yeah. I had a Lutheran tell me once, "Oh, the whole veneration of the Holy Cross." Well, Martin Luther says that if you took all of the pieces of the veneration of a Holy Cross and put them together, it would be enough to build Noah's Ark 3 times over. Basically saying that the veneration of the Holy Cross is a fraud. And I'm like, first of all, that's kind of blasphemous. Like, you're going to insult our Lord and our God enough to say he's not capable of preserving this holy relic. Second of all, that's just factually inaccurate. Like, if
Mhm.
one institution that has withstood 2,000 years, that is a bodied government, yes, also a ecclesiastical body that is instituted by Jesus Christ himself, this is called the Catholic Church, has, by the grace of God, the ability to preserve these documents, these archaeological facts. And
Mhm.
yeah, I believe that was backed by God. I do. And I'm not going to shy down from that. I
Yeah.
do believe that when we venerate the Holy Cross and these relics, that is actually the cross, parts of the cross where Jesus Christ died on. And you know what? My faith is not on the veneration of these relics. My veneration is on Jesus Christ. And a lot of Protestants will try to debunk or like this person was trying to debunk my Catholic faith by debating me on the veneration of the Holy Cross. And, if someone debunked that, that still wouldn't change my faith in the fact that Jesus Christ founded the Catholic Church 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And that truth has never changed, no matter how many people want to come up and make up lies about the Catholic Church, whether that be Martin Luther or people that are now leaving the Catholic Church and starting their own versions of what they say is the Catholic Church when they say there's no Pope. When people are trying to start a new non-denominational church because they're mad at their old non-denominational pastor, whatever that is, I'm praying for you, but that doesn't change the fact that Jesus Christ founded the Catholic Church.
Yeah. And yeah, that's why I say Catholic, Lutheran, whatever, go to Israel, go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It'll really make you think, believe a thing or two, hopefully, or make you think really, really hard about what you're choosing to possibly deny because it's right there in front of you and it's so beautiful.
Yes, and that's the thing is when I became Catholic, I didn't become less Christian, I became more Christian. And
Exactly.
I do believe that there are Protestant people that are in heaven. The Lord can work outside of the sacraments. I believe that there are people that never knew Jesus in this life that the Lord brought them to heaven. I believe that because that's what the Catholic Church teaches. Like someone who's ignorant of the gospel and dies without the opportunity to be baptized, the Lord is merciful and just. And I think of a child who's Muslim and never heard the gospel and they're bombed and they don't even, the Lord is kind and he is just and he is merciful. And so I want to say that. But I became more Christian when I became Catholic. And what I mean when I say that is I already loved Jesus before. I already had been baptized before, but now I have all this other stuff. I have the sacrament of marriage, which has changed my life for the better. I have the sacrament of the Eucharist, of communion, of the apostolic succession, which has instituted the Eucharist through Jesus Christ, or Jesus Christ instituted the Eucharist, and it is carried out through priests who have apostolic succession. And then we have
Mhm.
confession, the sacrament of confession. There's so many graces from that. And one day, God willing, I'll receive the anointing of the sick, which is another sacrament. And then there's the
Mhm.
sacrament of holy orders, like these 7 sacraments, which none of the Protestant churches have. They have 1, maybe 2. You're missing out, guys. You're missing out. If you're Protestant, you're missing out on 4 to 5 sacraments of physical, tangible means of God's grace. And yes, our Lord can work outside of those. God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. He can work outside of any means he wants to because he's God. But these
Mhm.
physical signs that he's given us through 2,000 years of tradition, use them. You can still go to
Mhm.
heaven if you're a Protestant. Sure, you can still go to heaven if you're a Protestant, but you're missing out on so much
Yeah.
help to get you to heaven.
Well, it's so spiritual too. Like all this, as someone who has experienced some of them, like my first confession, the obviously getting married as an adult, this the sacrament of matrimony, um, like getting to, they're incredibly spiritual. Like I mean, you were at my wedding.
Yes.
I compare my wedding in the church and my Catholic wedding that, maybe not everybody went to. Like there was definitely more people at the reception than at the church part of the wedding. But I'm like, would this have been like as impactful and powerful and spiritual as it was and as it should be if I was getting married on a beach? Probably not.
Yes, and there's such a witness to that. My wedding day was the best day of my life. Like,
I loved your wedding.
thank you. I truly felt heaven come down and touch us in it, and I really felt like my husband and I had both led sinful lives before we met each other, and when we met each other, it was like everything changed. We knew we wanted to get each other to heaven, and we knew we wanted to grow in holiness together, and that wasn't always easy, but our wedding day, I really did feel God's presence there as much as I did on my confirmation day and on the day where I received my
Mhm.
first, Eucharist and confession, because it is a tangible sign of God's grace in our lives, and this is a sacrament. My husband made this point actually on our anniversary. It's the only sacrament that you have to enter in with another person.
That's interesting.
Yes, it's the only
Yeah.
sacrament where you enter in with another person, and your goal in that whole deal, the whole sacrament is to get somebody else to heaven and get your children to heaven. And we are not perfect. My husband and I are not perfect, but by the grace of God, I can say confidently that because of our marriage, I'm much closer to being a saint than I was when I met him, and I pray that he's much closer to being a saint than he was whenever he met me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I totally feel the same way. And I don't know, being a convert and my husband being a cradle Catholic was really, I don't know, it just helped my faith a lot, and taught me so much more and just made my faith that much like spiritually more rich. And yeah, I thank God every day that I met my husband and got to experience, the sacrament of matrimony and live and get to be married with my best friend every day. Like that's pretty awesome. And we have our beautiful little, 9.5-month-old daughter. And getting to watch him be a dad every day is also quite a beautiful experience.
It's such a blessing, and I think when the world says marriage is hard, yeah, guys, just know that that's kind of a lie. Like, I just wanna phrase that, like, that's kind of a lie. Like, marriage is hard if you marry someone who is deep in habitual sin, who may be constantly cheating on you, who you know you shouldn't marry and you married them anyway, if they are abusive, if they are fill in the blank, yes, marriage is hard. But if you're marrying someone who yes, they are sinful, but their goal is to get you to heaven and your goal is to get them to heaven. It's not going to be hard. Yes, hard things happen. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, I almost died in a car accident last December. And by the grace of God, our lives were spared. That was a hard season, but I never looked at my husband one time with disdain or hatred or animosity or resentment or any of these things people talk about like it's normal in marriage. That's not
Mhm.
normal. Like I looked at my husband and just, I was so thankful that he was there to support us when I was in the hospital, that he was there and he came through for us and just just made it brought me closer to God in the most difficult times. And yes, difficulties happen in life, but marriage eases that burden. And like you said, it really is a joy to be living life with your best friend and get to see him be a dad. And it shouldn't
Yeah.
be this. And it's not. If you're marrying the person that God intended for you to marry, yes, hardships will happen. People get sick, people go to the hospital, people pass away, you become a widow or widower, and that is hard. But that mission to get your spouse to heaven, that should not be this, like, horrible thing that, like, the world paints marriage out to be. And
Mhm.
I think part of that too is this idea that marriage is for your happiness and to make you happy, and, like, that I'm sure you've had the same thing in your love life with your husband. Is like when you first meet and you're first married, it's like we just love spending time with each other all the time, where it's very romantic all the time, like candlelit dinners, roses every weekend, "Oh, where do you wanna go on vacation? What do you wanna do?" But like that puppy love in the beginning, that just like high, endorphin high, like, romantic trips, all this stuff, like, that is great and that is fun, but that is not ultimately the goal of marriage, and society
Right.
wants to paint marriage as that is what it's supposed to be, and then when the rubber hits the road, when hard things happen, that's when marriage is hard and you need to say marriage sucks, like, that's not true. Like, marriage is this
Yeah.
sanctifying process and it's joyful.
Marriage is not meant to serve the self. If you think that marriage, and like I think that's a really common like misconception. And like I don't know, marriage is the idea of marriage is changing a lot, being challenged, and this, that, and the other thing. But if you ever thought that marriage was meant to serve you, you're not going to be in a fruitful marriage because it's not, and it takes a lot, like ego death at the door, right? Like coming into a marriage with ego, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. And marriage at the end of the day should be this strongly communicative, beautiful partnership that God calls us to. And yeah, like that's, if you view it in the way the church calls us to view it and teaches us how to view it, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of fruits of the sacrament of matrimony.
Yes, and a lot of those fruits come through means that the world says, "That's crazy," or, "I don't wanna do that." Like, one thing is,
Like kids.
like kids, yeah, I was gonna say children and rejecting birth control. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to, maybe mute it, guys, if you don't wanna hear this, whatever, skip ahead. But, like, when you have marital relations with your spouse and you are open to life, yeah, it's a little scary when you got, a bunch of little babies running around because there is that, there's that potential to life, but that is another side of dying to yourself where it's like, I'm not just having risk-free or not even say risk-free, I'm not just having, uh, consequence-free marital relations. Consequences can be good and they can be a bad thing. And that's a part of where natural family planning, I think, comes into your marriage to sanctify you because you can't just do it every day. Sorry to be gross, guys. I don't know. That's not really gross. Sex isn't gross. But you can't just like be like, oh, we're gonna, I'm not gonna objectify my spouse. I'm not gonna use my spouse to the means of my sexual gratification. Like that's not holiness in marriage. These times of periodic abstinence to space out children does sanctify you and it makes you look at your spouse and realize they're not a means to my end of gratification. They're another human being with thoughts and feelings and emotions, and this goes both ways. And we have to put our mutual benefit and the benefit of our family above our own needs, and that for our marriage has been very sanctifying.
Yeah, that was even after converting, NFP was something that I struggled with and was very vocal that I struggled with. And then decided I was on birth control from 15 to, I'm trying to think, 24. I was on birth control for almost 10 years and then abstaining before marriage and all that jazz. There was no purpose for it, and I was like, I want my body back without birth control, without all, artificial hormones and all that stuff. And so I have not been on it since I was 24. I'm almost, I'm 27 and a half now. I have one baby. I remember NFP was an incredibly challenging idea to wrap my head around, but now I'm really happy that I did it and that I have my daughter. And I think that, and I heard a influencer say, Chrissy Horton, she's like, if it, the thing that made her a significant, she has 6 kids. So like, and I love moms with big families. I have like a Catholic mentor of mine. She has 7 kids. And so like, she's just an incredible woman. I wrote about her in one of my articles where I'm like, she could charge me for the things that she's taught me. She's like a mom sultan in a way. And I like Chrissy Horton sorry, going back to Chrissy Horton, she said, if it was up to me, you wouldn't be here. And that was like, like NFP, like, wow. Like, and you kind of see that, like the sacrificial part of it and we're inherently selfish, like humans are selfish, and if you don't think that we are born selfish in need of more selflessness and humility from God, like you're wrong. Like, sorry, I'm just right hand up, I'm telling you right now. And so that was something recently that really impacted me, is like, if it was up to me, you wouldn't be here. I'm like, whoa, those are some fighting words that will make you sit and think on about NFP and all that stuff.
Yes, and if anyone second guesses NFP, so it works. I just got to say that. And then also, contraception was the biggest issue I had with the Catholic Church when I was converting as well. And I regret my sin, and I'm very sad to admit the fact that I was on birth control before I met my husband. I had been in a series of very unhealthy and abusive relationships prior to meeting my husband. And in one of those particular relationships, I was on the birth control pill. And because I knew with that individual, I did not want to have children because I knew he was a bad guy. And, like I repent of my sin every day, even though I've already gone to confession and I've changed my life. And the Lord has brought me out of that. But I was smart enough to know I didn't want to have kids with a guy, but I was dumb enough to be, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and then on the birth control
Right.
pill. And the Lord has redeemed that darkness and brought me out of that. And I fully reject all types of birth control because I know how not just physically detrimental it is to our bodies, but spiritually. And the use of contraceptives is forbidden by the Catholic Church, and unless it's in cases of medical use, and that's really only if you're not sexually active, if you're not married. And I just want to put that out there. That is something I've struggled with. I mean, Marina's talked about this is something she struggled with. To the listener, I want to tell you that NFP does work. Like, I have had so many people in my life tell me, you're going to have 3 under 3, because we have 2 under 2 right now. You're going to have 3 under 3. Uh, you just need to use forms of birth control. And I reject that. And not to be too TMI, but natural family planning has worked wonderfully for our family. It's 99% effective with perfect use, and I trust the method we use. And I want to honor God in our life. And it's just knowing your body and knowing when to abstain periodically to space out pregnancies. And yeah, the contraceptive mentality is something that we need to avoid as Catholics, but spacing out our children appropriately for our physical, emotional, and financial needs is something that is totally within church teaching and totally okay. And,
I think that needs to be talked about more too. Like,
yes,
personally, I think that, like, some people are like, oh, baby factories,
yeah,
right? And I
yes,
think that being prudent in your family planning is something that needs to be discussed more as well.
yes,
Because I feel like sometimes people don't think that NFP is calling us to be prudent. Like, I think some people kind of split those two topics up sometimes. And
yes.
I think the church does call us to be prudent with family planning as well.
Yes, and I've had so many conversations with lovely young women who are very well intentioned, and I have the same mentality of, oh, NFP, that means you're going to have 13 kids, you're going to have 10 kids. And no, that's not true. Like, whatever the Lord calls you to, I know if I had a baby every year, I probably couldn't have 10 kids because I'm almost 30, and I probably will be premenopausal here in the next, 5 years. And,
Mhm.
so you're not going to have like a whole litter of children. And also, if you do, that's beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I would love to have met my husband when I was 20 and be having my 10th kid by now. I would have loved to have that. But the Lord had other plans for us, and I do have some physical ailments from having two in a year and a half. They're a year and a half apart. I need to heal my body before we have another baby. But the Lord is in control of that, and I do trust God with that. And that's a beautiful thing with NFP, is even though it is like 99% effective, like clinically they've studied it, it is more effective than the birth control pill in preventing pregnancy. There is still an openness to life that we have in principle with our marital relations with our spouses. And on that note too, like my husband and I, like I said, we were not perfect when we met each other. We had every intention of waiting till marriage. And Marina, we did not. And how Marina knows this is we were pregnant on our wedding day. And we met each other, we started the consecration to St. Joseph. We had every intention of waiting till marriage. I had obviously rejected the idea of birth control years before I met my husband, had started practicing the faith, fallen back into my Catholic faith after a couple of years of being away. And my husband and I, we got pregnant. And I was scared, and I had all these very intrusive thoughts about what people would think about us. And I realized that those intrusive thoughts and those negative thoughts I thought people were going to think about us were really just insecurities from my Protestant upbringing with the puritanical guilt and shame. Like you
Judgment
mentioned,
and a pro-judgment culture, yeah, which
yes,
the Catholic Church is anything but judgmental.
exactly. And like you mentioned, the pastor from your previous church, pastors can have their own opinions, and people take that as its own magisterium or it's its own
Right.
doctrine. And it's
Yeah.
really just some guy's opinions. The one thing that I
Some
realized,
guy wearing skinny jeans and a hoodie.
yes,
It can make you feel as like, and I think that's something that really hit home when I was after going to Israel, but before converting, and I was attending a very large non-denominational church in Dallas, is I left those sessions feeling icky, gross, shameful. And I'm like, God doesn't make us feel like tell me you've gone to a mass feeling like that. I don't know
never.
if anyone could say that.
Yeah.
Like you've never left a mass feeling crappy. At least I haven't. So
Yes, and even if the priest may be rude or maybe, not your cup of tea, you still leave the mass feeling better because Jesus Christ is there.
right.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and even in the higher church Protestants, I mean, when the pastor has some really far-fetched opinion, you're like, this is not from God." But he's a pastor, people blindly follow it, and it's very sad, and like you said, that puritanical culture of that guilt and that shame and that judgment, Marina, I never felt judgment. Like, literally, I wasn't showing because I used to be really skinny. Okay, I'm not trying to be vain, Lord forgive me for my vanity. Um, but I used to be really skinny and very petite, and I wasn't really showing, um, my pregnancy until, like, the week before my wedding, and then it was like, "Boom, you definitely have a baby." And on our wedding day, no one made me feel weird. Like, I had a good time, and I didn't even f like, I no one made me feel weird about it, and people were just we had 120 people at our wedding. Praise be to Jesus Christ, so many witnesses to our sacrament of marriage, and no one made me feel weird about it. And our son is such a blessing in our lives, and we wanted him from the get-go. Like, my husband and I, we knew we wanted to get married, and we still say now, if the Lord had let us get married sooner in the Catholic Church, we would have, but we were engaged for 9 months, and so, I think that was good for, our preparation for the sacrament, but if I could have married him the day I met him, I would have. Our
Mhm.
marriage has just been the most wonderful blessing in our lives and in my life for sure, and I think my husband would say the same. But that beauty of the Catholic faith, like that lack of judgment, it's like it's just like your with your testimony, you're not judged for it. People are rejoicing. People in the church militant here on earth and the church triumphant in heaven are rejoicing. When God willing, if I get to heaven, I know that the saints are gonna be happy I'm there. They're not gonna be like, "Oh, well, you used birth control and"
Yeah, you did this, that, and
yeah,
the other thing, and
yeah,
yeah.
"And you were pregnant on your wedding day." No, the saints will say, my prayer is, "We rejoice that you repented of your sin, that you hate the sin of your past life, that you follow Jesus with your whole heart, and that you committed your life to him." Not this judgment, I think it comes from partly from the puritanical movement in Protestantism, but you saying you experience the same thing makes me glad I'm not alone. I think a lot of people can relate to this, even people that are still Protestant.
Yeah, absolutely. And just some just kind of going back a little bit, something that I also, with all the judgment and the shame that I left those church sessions feeling, is something that was so awesome about the Catholic Church. You can go and study it. You can go and study there. There is resources that are accepted worldwide of what a church teaching is. Can you say the same thing for any other denomination? I don't know. Honestly, I haven't done enough research on it, but you can look at a certain teaching, and the entire world is called to that exact teaching, and there's only specific resources and history, etc., behind that teaching. It's so universal. that is the best part about the Catholic Church, is it the universal church, and it's so beautiful.
Yes, anywhere in the world that you go to church, whether you're in, America or Italy or Africa, like if you're in Kenya or if you're in Nigeria or if you're in Texas, the Catholic Church is universal, and that is a beautiful thing. It's
We're all
like
hearing the same readings every Sunday.
yes, exactly, and that's one thing too I noticed when I became Catholic is Protestantism is very racially segregated. You'll see a Hispanic Lutheran church and a white Lutheran church and African American Lutheran church, and I'm sure non-denominational Baptist churches I visited, Church of Christ churches I visited. It's very racially segregated. But one thing that struck me so powerfully when I went to mass, I started going to mass in high school secretly. I started secretly going to mass in high school because I couldn't tell my parents. But I was like, oh man, everyone's here. I mean, we have the Asian community, Latin American community, Caucasians, African Americans, people from literally every demographic are here because we are all united in one universal truth. There's not this racial segregation that I've noticed a lot in Protestant churches.
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, the Catholic Church is so beautiful for just so many reasons.
Yes, it's the one true faith.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for that. And that one thing I do want to talk to the listener about if you have struggled with sins of impurity, sins against the flesh, the use of contraception, even if you're in your marriage right now and you're a professing Catholic and you know you're sinning by using contraception and you feel convicted about that, just know the sacrament of confession is available to you and you are never too far gone. Like, even if you've had your tubes tied, like, the Lord can redeem that. Like, go to confession, apologize to Jesus for offending him and offending his
Mhm.
most sacred heart, and make reparations for your sins, and you are redeemable. And then once you're forgiven, there's no shame. If someone wants to come on here and shame me for, having sex outside of marriage prior to, meeting my husband, or be getting married to my husband, if someone wants to shame me for having sex before marriage, or if someone wants to shame me for the use of contraceptives, go ahead. You can't hurt me. Jesus has saved me. Go right ahead. I don't invite it, but like you can't hurt me. Jesus has already saved me. And I want to invite the listener to that as well, that there is redemption in the sacrament of confession, that there's nothing that you've done that cannot be forgiven. And once it's forgiven, you are as white as snow, as the Bible tells us. You are
Mhm.
clean. Christ has made you clean when you confess your sin.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you, where are you now? So you had this, I know we've kind of gone off these different topics, and I feel like the Holy Spirit's just leading this conversation. I didn't anticipate to have these conversations, these little deviations in our conversation. I didn't expect to have that today, but I think God's really ordained that. And I want to ask you, where are you today since your reversion and conversion?
Today, I, attend mass every Sunday, pray every day. I'm finding a lot of spirituality actually through studying the saints, through, the Catholic working mom. I've also been really into chants lately. They're also really good to get a baby to calm down in the car, just
Oh, yes.
FYI.
My son
You
loves
put you put
glorious
a
gifts.
chant.
And he tries to chant along. It's very cute.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, they're all in Latin, so I like could not tell you what they're saying, but they're so beautiful. So I've been finding a lot of spirituality in praying, just in prayer, in chants, and just through family life. I think just struggling so much with NFP and just being so scared, and like there's a lot of fear that comes around. Oh my God, like my husband and I got pregnant. I think we had a chemical pregnancy prior to our daughter. And so basically, I got pregnant at 3 months in, and then 4 months into my marriage. And I think I was really, really scared. Like, genuinely, is like a lot of my pregnancy was filled with, like, well, I only got 4 months to, prepare and just enjoy time with him and blah, 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 blah. And my daughter and has been so fruitful for my spiritual life, for my marriage, for everything. Like, I'm just so incredibly thankful for her. So I've grown so much and learned so much humility. Started praying for Mary's intercession more and stuff like that because of my daughter. So, like, I don't know. Don't be scared if you practice NFP, you know, and if you're nervous about it, like, first of all, you're not alone. Like, there's probably more people than not out there that are genuinely scared. And if you get pregnant early on in marriage, I promise you, it's really like when that baby is here, it is so much fun. It is so much fun and is so strengthening for your marriage too. Like the woman with 7 kids that's like a mentor of mine, she's like, she had a baby at 11 months into her marriage, and she is over 20 years into her marriage now, 7 kids, 20 years, one of the best Catholics I've ever met in my life. She's like, she had her first baby 11 months. She's like, I wish I could have had that baby earlier. She's like, that was the best. She's like, having a baby early on in marriage is the best thing that's ever happened, like, to our marriage. And so don't be afraid.
Yes, it is the best thing. And another lie that I hear a lot. One thing I hear, okay, the lie of marriage is hard. I don't think that's true. And the next lie is when you have kids, your life is over. Your life is ruined. And I just got to say, for those who love to travel and that is inhibiting your discernment of children, don't let it, because I have traveled more in my life since having my kids than I did before. I have taken my son across country. I have flown with him literally like East Coast to West Coast. My husband and I have taken our children to national parks. We are planning on going international with our kids soon, with both of them, with our babies. And don't let this idea, this lie from the enemy say, like, once you have kids, you can't go to brunch, because we still go to brunch, guys, and it's still
Yeah.
fine. Like, he
We
colors
go
with
get
crayons.
yeah. Yeah, like I mean, we went with all of the kids
Yes.
when y'all were in town, and that was so much fun. It's like, it's beautiful chaos. Like,
Yes.
you can still get me and my husband still get margaritas with our daughter,
Yes.
right? Like, we have this little like placemat thing so she can't throw the toy. Like, there's tools out there.
Yes.
Use the tools.
Yes.
And your life does not end. It just grows and looks different and I don't know, it's so beautiful.
Yes.
Like, you know, I've flown with our daughter 3 times now. I've flown with her once alone, which, I like, not to brag, but like, is hard and
Yes.
awesome when you tell people, you're like, I've flown alone with an 8-month-old. What'd you do?
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's only hard if you make it. She was on my flight when I was alone with her and flying alone. She's a little bit challenging on the way there, but there's people all around you that are just so gracious too, because it's like, they're like, oh, this is like a baby on a plane. Like, it's just hard no matter which way you put it. On the way back, I prayed a billion Hail Marys. She slept the entire ride home. So, just saying, say some Hail Marys, and she might sleep the whole time.
Yes, yes, it's yeah, we had our most recent time flying with our son. He actually got hand, foot, and mouth on the flight back, and that was the only flight that I would say was truly challenging, and that was an East Coast to West Coast flight, and I look at my husband, and I'm like, "I think he's getting hand, foot, mouth." He goes, "No, no, that's not happening." Sure enough, it was really bad, the hand, foot, mouth, and that was a whole week after. That was really hard. He broke out with that on the flight, which was so not good. But like anytime, even when you're single, you have horror stories of traveling. It's gonna happen regardless if you have children or not. And just embrace the chaos. And you can still travel the world with kids. You can still do things that you love with children. You just bring them along. Like I baby wear, we're training our oldest to learn to hold hands and follow
Yeah.
closely because he thinks he's independent. He thinks he's a little grown up. So, we just you can do these things and don't let people tell you this lie and sell you this lie that having children is the end of joy and happiness, because it really just amplifies what you are. It amplifies what you already have in you, what you need to work on, and then also the joys in life and the happiness. It amplifies a lot.
Yeah, it's been yeah. I want to take my daughter, and I really my like Israel's one of the next trip. The next big trip I want to go on is Israel. We're going to Mexico in January, but
Oh, that's
yeah,
fun.
just for our anniversary. But that is like the next international trip that I'm like dying to go on. So hopefully I might try to get that in next year, but hopefully, if not within the next 2 to 3 years, because I want the world to see the beauty of that country and all the history of our church and of Jesus that's there.
Yes, that is a place that I've been wanting to go to for a long time, and maybe we need to just convince our husbands to do these trips because my husband and I love Europe, and I'm in the process of convincing him to take the kids to Southern France here in a couple of months, and he's on board, but he's like, "Are you sure with the kids?" And I'm like, "Yes, honey, we can do it." And so maybe we just need to convince the husbands. Maybe we could do a couples trip, go to Southern
Pilgrimage.
France.
Yeah, a pilgrimage with babies.
Yes, I think that would be awesome. I think the more the merrier, and,
Yeah.
I was talking to him about that yesterday, and I was like, we just need to do it, we just need to go." And so I think I have him sold. I love my husband, he just takes a little bit of convincing to do these, like, the big
Yeah.
international trips with the kids. He's like, "Okay, like, are we prepared for this?" Yes, I think we're
You just gotta make a PowerPoint. You gotta make it like a Venn diagram, pros, cons, like
Yes. Yes, yes. I should definitely do that. I think he's sold, but, I think I think it'll be a good time. But anyway. All right. So my last question for you today is if you could speak to yourself at your lowest point before your ultimate reversion to the faith, what would you tell yourself?
go all in. Go all in and stop letting fear drive you. I think that it's something that young people, whether it's experiencing a new, religion or whatever, is people are often driven by fear when if you just take the jump and go all like I wish I went all in on Catholicism earlier because it's been incredibly fruitful to my life spiritually in just so many ways since. So that's what advice I'd give my earlier self that was struggling quite a bit is go all in on Catholicism.
That's great advice. And I know that that will speak to someone who's listening today.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find your content?
They can find me on at the Catholic Working Mama on Substack and Instagram. They're both a work in progress. Like I'm trying to figure out like, do I want to talk about like random economic things in it? Right now it's just like mom, work, Catholic content, but it's kind of growing and morphing and that's where you could find me. And I like sharing stuff. I like sharing advice, tips, tricks, and all the other things.
Well, that is a part of the internet that's much needed because there are so many of us women that don't fit into that mold of staying at home full time. And my children take up most of my hours of my week, but I have this podcast that I love evangelizing. And so there is a
Mhm.
need for that on the internet that you bring to the public of, yes, you can be a faithful Catholic woman and be a mother and have a job outside of the home. There is beauty in that service.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marina. Thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Voices of Conversion. If you like this episode, please hit the like button on YouTube. Make sure to hit subscribe before you X out of this video. It takes just a couple of seconds, but it changes the trajectory of this content for the better. And it brings this content to souls who need to hear it most. Please share this with one friend. That will help me and this project, this evangelization immensely. Until we see you next time, stay close to Christ. Bye.